Hi everybody, this is Duke with a video regarding installing the Hobby Eagle A3 stabilizer into our Outlaw 250. Now I've gone back and forth a little bit this semester, if you're watching it this semester, on whether we're going to use these or not in the class and trying to fit them in. I think they're really cool. We're going to run out of time at some point trying to do too many things in the class. So I'm trying to balance the cool stuff we can do with the time that we have. And I think we'll be able to do this semester and add these to our planes, which I think will be kind of fun and obviously more of the autonomous, adding some onboard computing to our aircraft. Okay? Relatively low level of onboard computing, but still a little bit nonetheless to help us fly our airplanes and hopefully not crash them as much. All right, so here's my Outlaw 250. This was a quick build. Looks a little bit different than yours does, perhaps. Built it up real quick with some smaller servos to see how I liked it. I didn't like it as much just because the smaller servos have smaller servo wires, which are easier to damage. But it does work. So this is basically the same thing, but as your build, but it has smaller servos and a slightly smaller motor as well. But everything else should be pretty similar. Okay, so inside our aircraft, we have our ESC and stuff in there. All right. And it's a little bit hard to see now because I've already tucked it back in there. But right back in there, that black thing on the right-hand side is my A3 Mini, my stabilizer board, my little flight controller, whatever you want to call it. Okay. You may also have your receiver tucked somewhere inside here, maybe in here or on the, underneath down in here somewhere. I have kind of just a receiver I move around between aircraft sometimes that does S-bus, and that receiver is actually taped over here on the side. So it's not exactly the same as yours in that sense either, but the functionality will be the same. I'll show you a little bit with the other receivers more similar to the kind you might have in your plane when we talk about how to set this up. So we have a couple other receivers I'll kind of show as examples. All right, but the plane, before we install the A3 Mini, should be working. We should have everything set up, servo centered, control surface moving and centered when they're plugged in. So we can't, you typically can't fix with software what you messed up on hardware-wise, if that makes sense. So we can't just plug the little computer in and fix everything. It's got to be working ahead of time. Okay, and then we can add this autonomy or this computing resource on board to give us better flight, easier flight, whatever you want to do with it. All right. So the A3 Mini, like I said, is already installed in my aircraft, and it's installed. Let's see if I can get this on camera a little better. It's installed there with the nose facing forward, the USB port facing forward, all the servo plugs there towards the back, which is a little bit hard to see, but you can probably see what I'm talking about in there. So the A3 is kind of tilted on its side with all the plugs facing that direction, all the servo plugs facing that direction, and the USB port is facing towards the nose of the aircraft. And that's how I've chosen to install mine. You can do it different ways, though you do have to keep the arrow on the A3, the little arrow on the sticker, facing towards the nose of the plane. You can't change that. So you can put any way you want, kind of in the roll axis, but the nose always has to be towards the nose. Okay? All right. So that's in there. It does fit pretty well in the height we have here on this, part of the plane. Fits nicely there. You could put it on the other side. You could even put it upside down on the top, on the underside of this top piece if you wanted to. I thought it was nice tucked way back in there for center of gravity reasons, as well as plenty of space to fit the battery. A little bit hard to access the A3, but once I have everything's plugged in and working, we don't need to access it much anymore besides maybe the USB port, which is still, come on camera, still accessible in the front there. All right. So we have our plane. Okay, there's our plane that's already functional. We have our A3. Yours won't be inside the plane yet, but you have your A3 with you. Okay, your A3 comes with a little adapter thing. Let's get the plane out of the way for a second. Little adapter to plug into your computer. Okay, there's that, and you'll have your receiver maybe just loose in the plane so far. You might want to pull it out for this part of the operation, but you have the receiver, whether it's this kind or this kind, or whatever type you have. You have some kind of PWM receiver that you bought for class. Okay. So the cool thing about these PWM receivers, they're reconfigurable, and I have a couple of videos about that where we change the output mapping of the receiver to not only output PWM, but to also output S-bus, okay, which is what we use in this case for setting up with the plane. We'll also use that with our Aura Light flight control later in the semester when we set that up on our larger plane. Okay, so I'm not going to do that in this video. We're going to talk about this already being set up for S-Bus. We have an S-Bus ready to go receiver, okay? And that's what we're assuming in this video. If you haven't yet set your receiver up for S-Bus, then go ahead and check those videos out in the other playlist, which will be linked in this assignment, okay? So we have an S-Bus receiver. We have our little connector dongle between the computer and our A3 Mini. It just has a micro USB here. So you grab a micro USB to micro USB cable. I can't remember if this comes with the Mini or not. I apologize, it's been too long since I pulled this one out. If it comes with the Mini, then obviously that's in the box. If not, then we'll find some in the classroom for you to use. But this will allow you to plug your A3 Mini, okay, into the computer. All right. You also want to have your transmitter handy and, of course, bound up to your aircraft and everything. Okay. And then you will want either a power supply or some kind of battery to power your aircraft for some of this setup. All right, so let's go over, let's pause. We'll break the video there. I'll be right back.